Tell us about in-base, Jeff, and about the abuse at in-base.
Uh, a very interesting place. I don't know if you noticed the other day, Google Earth suddenly started displaying the int base in 3D.
Mm,
And so you can now, if you go on Google Earth, you can now see the int base in 3D, all the
mm,
buildings and everything. So I went on
wow.
there and I looked at that, and oh my God, did that bring back some horrible memories. And I was talking to somebody who left the base years after I did, and they reminded me of something. They said, "Do you remember that feeling of death that hung over the base?" There was this sort of this pall of fear, a feeling of death that hung over the base, and I'm sure it's still the same to some degree. In other words, you kind of felt threatened all the time. You felt like you were under stress, under duress, terrifically stressful place. You were always being watched.
And I had somebody watching me always, 24 hours a day. I had to have a buddy with me. I had someone shining a flashlight in my face at night while I was sleeping every 2 hours to make sure I was still in bed.
I drove off of the property on a motorcycle. Within 30 seconds of me leaving, I was being followed by an SUV that belonged to the security personnel there at the compound.
All of the other staff were encouraged to, well, everybody was encouraged to write knowledge reports on all of the other staff.
According to Rinder, Miscavige sometimes dictated what he wanted people to confess in the hole. Other times, the managers pushed one another to confess.
The 50 people there all screaming at me and telling me that I've done this and I've done that. Why don't I just admit it? And I stole money and I had affairs. And I mean, people just literally, Tom, randomly dream up bullshit and start screaming it out, and then the mob starts going crazy like, oh yeah, it must have been that, oh yeah, it must have been that. There's all sorts of written confessions that people have done, and they read like North Korean POW write-ups.
So you couldn't step out of line. You couldn't just in confidence say something to another staff member because you knew it was going to end up with an ethics report, and then you'd have a trip to ethics, you'd have your sec checks and so forth.
Was supposed to leave on a plane, and within a few hours of the plane leaving, I was told that I couldn't leave unless I had gone on their e-meter and done a security check. And I was like, well, my mom has bought me a non-refundable ticket. How am I supposed to do this? I'm supposed to leave in a couple hours. They said, well, you can't. If you do, you're gonna be subject to justice when you come back. That basically means that my position in the organization that I was in would be negated. It meant a lot of things to when you're in the C organization. A justice action's considered scary.
Your mail was opened. Any mail from family was opened, and make sure that that they weren't disaffected or disinfected, as we say. And your mail out to your family was censored, so you couldn't say anything bad. It had to be all good roads and good weather. Yeah, everything's great. It's wonderful here, and so forth and so on. And calls to family were discouraged, but if you had to make a call to the family, then there was always an ethics officer or a security guard on the phone on another line, unbeknownst to the person you were calling. They would think they were just talking to you. Really, they were talking to you, and the security person was listening in to make sure that you didn't say anything wrong. That was just the ongoing thing. And then there was the constant threats. Because, well, for one thing, you're not getting much sleep there. The last 2 years I was there, I think I averaged 4 hours sleep a night.
When I left in 2005, I was averaging 3 to 4 hours sleep a night, and in some weeks I was putting in over 130 hours a week.
Extremely sleep deprived, and the food was not that good.
In addition to lack of sleep, there's also lack of proper nutrition, and the meals that are being prepared there, and the facilities to support the staff that work there are very, very mediocre.
They had this team share system, which was something that Hubbard had devised, and it was supposed to give everybody a sort of a incentive to do better. Well, the incentives were all negative. It was take away your days off, your Liberty days. It was take away your food, so you had to eat beans and rice. And on up to taking away your berthing, where you had to sleep under your desk.
Everyone in the building spent nights in sleeping bags or on cots, staking out floor space in offices and conference rooms.
I never really saw much when I went in there, other than I went in there and you could sort of smell the smell. People live here. People sleep here.
So if you didn't meet your quota, if you non-complied with an order, then a senior or an MAA could take away one of your cards. And there were 5 cards. And once you'd lost your cards, you had no privileges at all. You couldn't be paid. You had to eat beans and rice, sleep under your desk, and so forth. And some people would lose all their cards and be in that condition for weeks or months, living in very degraded conditions.